So since we've already covered the fact that scholarships without essays aren't worth much of your time, since everyone else is going after those easy ones, we really need to cover what scholarship committees are looking for in the essays you're submitting. And just as a reminder, coming up next, we're going to be covering steps to follow after you win a scholarship and also tips to complete the FAFSA. My first piece of advice is to cater to your audience. What I mean by this is to pay attention to the company offering the scholarship. For example, when I sat on that Independent Business Association scholarship board, the essays written about starting their own lawn mowing business almost always won over essays describing a passion for nursing and helping others, no matter how well it was written. In that case, it was the audience that mattered. That being said, it's important to show your personality and be creative. So many students are just not very skilled writers yet, and their essays read like an extended resume. My name is Michaela, and for the past 2 summers, I taught piano lessons. It just isn't a thrilling opening to an essay. So now imagine that you're on a scholarship committee and you read 20 essays that started like that last one, and then you flipped the page and you read this one. When my fingertips touch ivory, I feel more at home than when I walk in my front door. Okay, now I'm intrigued. I really want to know where this essay goes next. So just any chance to brighten the reader's day and be creative or clever will stand out in the best way. So every student that works with me knows that I really hate being vague. So let's look at some effective ways to start your essay or a hook sentence. Again, imagine that you're on a scholarship committee and you're reading essays and you read an essay that starts, "My hands shook as I wondered what I'd done." You definitely want to know what comes next. It sounds kind of dark. You're really just wanting to know what happens next. It adds an element of mystery. Okay, now you're flipping the page and there's another essay that starts, "You never know where a single idea might take you." Now, as the reader, you're kind of sitting back in your chair, you're getting ready for a really great story because this student is starting off in a great storytelling mode. Now let's look at lines or kind of the body of your essay. In the line of an essay, especially a scholarship essay, you should be describing your future goals without it turning into an extended resume. Don't say, I've spent 3 summers in political science camp. Describe what you did there. Describe your future goals, but just don't let it turn into a resume. And also, share personal elements. Scholarship committees are awarding money to a person. And so you should definitely try to gain that likability factor through personal elements throughout your essay. And finally, let's look at some closing statements. Any closings should be tying back into the beginning or your hook. If you can tie anything back in, even just with your word choice or a hint of something you mentioned in the very beginning, it shows that you're clever and you're well organized in your writing. It just basically shows that you're a well-deserving, organized student. And finally, we have the grocery store analogy. What I mean by this is that scholarship applications are not as extensive as college applications. They don't have a further chance of getting to know you outside the essay. It's really your only chance to show your personality. So imagine your scholarship essay is essentially walking up to someone in a grocery store and handing them your essay and asking them to contribute $20 to your college fund. Now, if you've picked a sweet old lady, you might not even need an essay. But honestly, in the big picture, it's kind of the way scholarships work. You're just submitting an essay and hoping for money. So just make sure this grocery store analogy works for the essays that you're submitting. Now let's check out a sample essay that meets all of this criteria so you can see this in action. Now this is kind of like a bullet point version of the real essay because it's really hard to fit 500 words on this screen and have you be still able to read it. So let's read this together and see how the grocery store analogy is in motion here. The essay prompt for this essay was, "Tell us why you chose your major." This is a common go-to question for scholarships to ask, by the way. You're going to see this on 30 to 40% of the scholarships you apply for in your senior year. I taught myself to knit as a way to connect with my grandmother as age kept her from attending all of my school plays. After she passed, I continued knitting for the memories it held. After knitting myself a new fall wardrobe, adding a little bit of humor there, I began knitting winter scarves and hats to donate during the holidays to my local homeless shelter, as well as knitting small bunnies and bears for a local foster home facility. I also hosted knitting classes in a variety of churches and nursing homes to connect with other knitting enthusiasts just like my grandma. As I look forward to my college aspirations, I'm excited to pursue a major in education. I hope to continue finding new ways to connect with others, just as this simple act of knitting brought me closer to my grandmother in her last years. Okay, so now why is this essay effective? Well, it boils down to the fact that you believe the author. You get to know her and her family in a few short words. By the end, you probably want to hang out with her. She honestly sounds like a good person. Now, this isn't some unattainable, amazing story of someone escaping a war or something. This is a normal girl next door that did something worthwhile with a hobby. By the end, you'd probably genuinely believe that she's going to do something great with her education, as she's proven that she'll do a lot of good with very little resources. In short, she would probably earn your $20, right? So she was genuine throughout her story, and it seemed personal. More layers were added as you continued to read, and you were really able to get to know her by the end. Also, this essay speaks to any audience, whether she's applying for an education scholarship, related to her major, or maybe it was for a leadership scholarship. It's pretty impossible not to like this story and to root for her. So just keep this grocery store analogy in mind as you begin crafting your scholarship essays. So thank you for your time again during this lesson. And next, we're going to be covering what to do after you win a scholarship.